A serious topic that you've turned to, folks. Indeed. And yet, the topic of suicide, the causes for it, are not different from other kinds of problems that we feel, of anxiety, of fear, of depression, of a vengeful attitude towards others. There's only a singular issue that underlies all of these problems and which underlies suicide. And what underlies suicide is what I would call a feeling of being annihilated. Now there's two kinds of annihilation. One is a physical annihilation in which you can be killed. The other one is an annihilation of your sense of identity, of your sense of worth, of your sense of self-esteem. And when that gets annihilated, and you don't have an answer to it, suicide is one of the possibilities that get entertained. You're looking, for instance, with that annihilation that can cause substance abuse. And the reason that it does, this feeling of annihilation that occurs, causes the belief that there is an essential worthlessness to yourself, for which you feel there is no answer. Now actually there is an answer, and certainly as we proceed through this discussion we're going to present the answer to it, but it would feel as though there's no answer. I look at myself. Did I ever have a suicidal thought? Not so. No, didn't go that far. Did I have feelings, though, of feeling crushed, of feeling annihilated? Yes, these feelings exist. They existed in me. But I always had some place that I turned to, that I was in, for instance, for 10 years, I was into psychotherapy for myself, seeking for answers to the fear that existed that could make me feel a sense of worthlessness. But it was something that I was struggling with, something that I believed that there was an answer to. Couldn't find the answer. I went to 3 analysts about it, and none ever touched that feeling of annihilation or spoke about it. Never happened. And yet I kept looking. There had to be an answer to it. And if I did not have that attitude, I would have been in deep trouble in some way myself. Could have had a psychotic state, a psychotic breakdown, or some kind of substance abuse problem. Any of those things that we all reach for, or demanding of others to make us feel good, that we turn to others for a sense of identity. There was always something that I could turn to in my search. I never reached an end point where I didn't have any answers anymore. But the feeling of it, of that feeling of inferiority, of feeling others are better than you, or you're not as good as others, and the fact you don't want this to be shown. You don't want to talk about it because it isolates you. You begin to believe that this is just you. It's not other people, it's just you. But what I'm saying to you is the good news about those feelings is that those feelings are right, but for a different reason. They are right. You are into an area in which you're on target. When you feel problems with the qualities of your self-esteem, of not being as good, of being very strict on yourself, that you can't even make errors or anything without hitting this kind of an area, and you're so ashamed of these feelings, it makes you feel so cruddy, so ashamed that you would never talk about it. This has to be addressed, and this is why we're talking about it, and why you've turned here, because addressed it must be. Now, the issue becomes, how is it addressed? The issue is that you have a false belief about yourself. You have made a judgment about yourself that you are in some way unworthy. And the more unworthy you feel, the more that it covers of your self-identity, the more severe the problem is. But the problem is that you have this belief. Now, where does it come from? Did God, for instance, if you believe that God created you, and that's another issue, but let's assume that you do believe that at this point. If you believe that God created you, I create you, my beloved child, would God now create you with problems of self-esteem? Would God do that? Would God want you to be born to not feel good about yourself? Or you have to be born, God wants you to be born to go through a lot of miseries and upsets in order to come out of them and then feel good about yourself. Would God do that? Would you do that as a parent? That if a child is coming your way, that you would not want to have the child feel good, decent, of worth? Would you not want the child to feel good about themselves? Well, if you say yes to it, then you might agree that God also says yes to that. So that we're not created to have these problems and to require solution before God says, now you are acceptable to me. It's absurd. It is absurd. And yet this belief system goes on, that in some way God puts you in this world in order to overcome feelings of doubt and to feel that you are worth, and that's the job of this world. No, the job of this world is to undo it in the first place, because you have positive feelings about yourself in the first place. You have positive feelings about yourself. It's your natural state to have positive feelings about yourself. They're inside you. Well, Bob, you say this, but I don't feel it. And I turn to this topic because I feel so depressed and worthless. Those feelings are a mistake. Oh, well, okay, Bob, you say it's a mistake. How are we going to solve it? We will get to it. But you need to be open to the fact, the possibility, the hope, the wish, the desire that this is a mistake and there's some kind of answer, because there is. You have taken upon yourself your own creation of who you are. You never ask God about it, but the world and all of its downing moments on its participants within it cause you to believe that there are no answers, because all you know is no answers. You don't see it around you. But the fact is, there are answers, and the answers lie in the relationship of God to yourself. That if that can be solved, the issue of suicide is overcome, because the you that is positive is so real that it can be used to counter the feelings that are unreal. Well, now that's what we're going to get into in this next chapter on suicide. Where do the negative feelings of annihilation, of the feeling of wiping out your wealth, come from? Where do the feelings of worthiness, of self-esteem come from? that can counter this kind of problem. That's what we're going to talk here about. And I'm going to use a statement from a book that I wrote and which will be covered at another time. The name of the book is The Will of God, Bringing My Children Home. This is a book that I wrote in which God partakes in this book, enters into it, reinforcing the fact that God says this book is of worth. And I want to read a statement from it that's on the back cover of the book because it's helpful and it's well organized in the way I say it. There's not a problem you've got that God can't solve. Good news, there's not a single problem that you've got that who can't solve? Not yourself, that God can't solve. Well, why bothers it God? Why can't I solve things? There's a simple reason for it, and it comes from the reading here, that your human mind that you're going by causes problems and can't solve them. And once you're open to hearing that, you are in good shape. You're even in good shape because you're working on this, that you're looking for answers. That's good shape because that's strength. That's not weakness, it's strength. Now let me read to you this statement on the back cover of this book because it's a goodie. We have two minds. The human mind of this world and the divine mind of the spirit world. Two minds. There's one you, but it depends on which mind you're going to come from. And I'll say it again. We have two minds, the human mind of this world and the divine mind of the spirit world. The human mind causes sickness, fears, worries, and woes, and it's behind suicide as well as depression and all the other kinds of things that we have. That's the human mind. The divine mind brings wellness, love, peace, and joy. That there is a you that is in peace, that it doesn't make any difference what relationship, what circumstance that you're in. You have the feeling, the knowledge that the answers to these issues, to feeling good about yourself, they are there. They don't have to be built by you. You don't have to create them. You don't have to get out your workshop tools in order to create it. You were created in the first place. They were given to you in the first place because you are created by God and you are a God. One of the statements, the wonderful statements that got made to me in God's conversations with me, which get covered in other areas, was there is but one truth. Ye are gods and ye are loved. That's the divine mind that knows this, that you are a God and you're loved. You are loved. But sometimes I feel unworthy and unloved. That's from the human mind. You are a God. You are God's and you are loved. It is impossible under that circumstance where eternal life is there, you cannot be annihilated, you can't be wiped out no matter what happens to you. Earthquakes in the world, you drown, somebody, quote, kills you, unquote. You cannot be destroyed. You are a God and you are loved. That if people don't love you, you can enter into a situation with that and be able to bring to you the fact that you can love them because you know they're just lost. They don't know who they are and they don't know who you are. And you can have a feeling of self-worth about yourself. So the final statement, let's repeat it, folks, because let me tell you, your human mind is not like what you're hearing right now, and it's going to try to block you like mad from your own feelings of suicide or depression. I'll do it once more. We have two minds, the human mind of this world, the human mind that we're living by in a world that God didn't create. He doesn't create worlds with earthquakes and tsunamis and all just to test you out. Sorry, this is a tsunami test. You must pass it before you get back to heaven. Forget it. Craziness of the human mind. God doesn't create a world in which he makes his children suffer. How will you find it out? You keep listening. We have two minds, the human mind of this world and the divine mind of the spirit world, your godly mind. The human mind causes sickness, fears, worries, and woes, and all your twisted beliefs, your annihilated kind of beliefs about yourself. The divine mind brings wellness, love, peace, and joy. Next sentence. The creator of all, that's your creator, your God, however you know your God. The creator of all knows how to deliver the healing that enables the surrender of the human mind and recovery of the divine mind that overcomes the troubles of this world and returns every single one of God's children home to heaven. That's a long sentence, huh? Once more, the answer comes from what God has to deliver to you. The creator of all knows how to deliver the healing. You do not know how to heal yourself. This human mind made you troubled. It doesn't have the slightest idea of how to untrouble you, how to decombobulate you after combobulating you. Hasn't got the slightest idea of how to do it. Can't. It's made to block out the awareness of the truth about ourselves. As we decide we're going to become the center, we're going to become our own creator, and we make up this whole thing because God gave us the ability to go ahead and create. You go ahead and create, children, whatever you want, you have the right to do it. So we create this world, we create a world in which now we feel we're the creator because we can't feel God present to us, and we now have all feelings of depression, of a sense of worthlessness, because we know we're doing something that isn't nice. We are blocking out the awareness of God as our creator. And so, the sentence again, the creator of all knows how to deliver the healing that enables the surrender of the human mind. Can't solve the human mind. It stays the way it is. It was created to be that way by ourselves. The creator of all knows how to deliver the healing that enables the surrender of the human mind and the recovery of the divine mind that overcomes the troubles of this world, of your life, and returns every single one of God's children home to heaven. That's where the problem is. This is where the issue is about suicide. You will not suicide when you know that God exists and that this is an unconditionally loving God. If you don't know that, you're at risk for all the problems that hit, and if they hit in such an overwhelming sense that no matter where you turn or what you can experience, you see no answers and you are crushed. You're annihilated in the feeling that you have strength, that you have character, that you have worth. And when you can't find this kind of a thing, the risk of suicide is there. And how does it get solved? If you can pause, if you can want a solution and stop, simply stop and go to God, the solution is there. And we'll finish this off in the next phase of the discussion. Part 3 of this issue of suicide. You remember in part 1 that when I used myself as an example, and I said that I never got to the point of feeling suicide, although I was feeling the annihilation, the inability to feel good about myself, but it wasn't so full that I had reached an end and there was no answers to it, and I would be a crushed being, unworthy in everybody's eyes, including my own, and couldn't stand any longer to get there, to get out of it. That's where the suicidal person runs across the issue that there are no answers. And I mentioned that I always had answers. I could turn somewhere looking, that the annihilation of myself wasn't complete, unhappy with it, but kept looking for it, and the looking for it paid off. Because the answer is, as we've been leading up to, one needs to go to God for a solution. One needs to go to God for a solution. Remember what I said in the second part, that your human mind gives you all the woe, doesn't know how to undo it, and it is the spirit mind, your godly mind, the mind that is oneness between you and God, where the solution comes. So you have to turn to God with it. Now you might say, Bob, I don't know how to turn to God with this. I don't even know if God exists. Fair enough. That's good. But you have strength because of the fact that you went looking and you have found us in order to talk about this. So there's a strength there. You're not wiped out. You're looking. Good stuff. It is sufficient unto itself to activate God within you, because you need to pick up your godly mind if you are just simply to stop and say, I can't go on. That's sufficient in itself. And you pause, and you now have let God become active with yourself. God never opposes you. If you think I can go on, oh, don't tell me this stuff about God. Hey, you got to really get your own act together, etc. God does not oppose that. He gave you the right to be able to feel whatever it is you want to feel and create whatever you wanted to create, including this world of suffering and this human state of suffering. But God doesn't have to interpose himself and contradict you if you don't want it, because the reality, the ultimate reality is that all of this is imagination, because God never created you this way and didn't create a world in which he was going to force you to become proof of your worth. God does not do that. And so you never can get annihilated. You're a godly self, and you are loved. And since that's the ultimate reality, you can go play all the games you want, but you can't annihilate what God made you of. You can feel annihilated in what you have made of yourself, but you do not annihilate what God makes. And so you just continue on it. So God doesn't have to worry that you're doing something which annihilates his child. It simply annihilates the image that you have chosen to believe about yourself. And it's sufficient for God now to enter in and to be able to say that I can become active because you have given me permission. Secondly, maybe you're past that. I would myself use the prayer when I'm faced with very painful sense of identity, which happens 100 times a day, where my human mind comes in and I'm into the woe, the despair, the loneliness, the sense of who am I. Happens every day because my human mind can trick me and is very, very busy trying to get me away from God and keep me away from God. But I go to God with the prayer, Lord, I want you as me. That's my prayer. I want you as me. I want my godly mind that's one with you, because in that mind you know the answers to every problem, and I become the individual at that moment that you created, knowing how to handle my feelings about myself or about other people or my circumstances exactly as you would, and I feel you inside myself, knowing that I am indeed being kept company, that I am not alone, I am not isolated, and you, God, are the only one that can give me that feeling. God is the only one who can bring that feeling. Other people can't solve your problems. They got the same problems you have. And they can't solve your problem of you feeling, without a doubt, inside of yourself, this worthwhile being that you are, because you now have permitted your God mind to come back to you, and that God mind has no need ever for suicide. It has no need for any kind of problems. The God mind is a mind of peace, of quiet, of belongingness. You're God's beloved. And you're one with all of God's beloved, because that's how God made us. And there's no suicide in that. There can't be. There is no annihilation in that. And so that a suicidal thought can be countered by your wanting to turn over to God and feel God's presence within you, which is a presence of you, of self-worth from your oneness with a loving God that is there. This is the solution. It is helpful for you also to find support for this kind of thing. Remember, I mentioned in an earlier discussion on this topic, I went for 10 years to 3 different therapists seeking answers. Couldn't find them. The classical helping professions back then and even now have not included the spiritual aspect as the center of healing. That healing comes down to the belief there is a God, and it is an unconditional loving God, and that God is in me. That's what mental health is. That's where help is. That's where worth comes from. That you feel there is a God, and this God loves you unconditionally. He gives you the right, go ahead, fantasize whatever you want. I know you're causing yourself suffering, but I created you, and you have the right to go ahead and play around with this until you get tired of it. And then at that point, I help you back, because you don't know how to get back. You're in a wrong mind for getting back, and I get you out of the mind by helping you realize when you stop, there is some point that you have given me where I come in and do a little poke with my cosmic finger and show you a moment of feeling good, even a moment of feeling good. And that gets you ready for the realization of another moment and another moment as God leads you gently, bit by bit, into the awareness that there is one you. You've got 2 minds, one that's an imagined mind that you've come up with, and the other one is the mind of the real you, of your godly being. And you are recovering that bit by bit by bit. And it can't miss. God will also provide you a support group, a person or persons who knows prayer life and who knows how the human mind tries to trick you even when you're going to God. Don't go there. What are you doing? Come back to me. Your aggravator, if it was an honest mind, the one who makes you miserable, but doesn't do that, makes you think that, oh no, there's still answers. If you can just somehow or other master this and do that and show, hey man, I'm macho, or whatever a lady feels, I'm macho lady. Haven't got a word for it, sorry. But if you are going to go there, problems occur. If you want to feel the godly you in which they don't exist, nothing exists except the feeling of worth, of strength, of God in you, and the knowledge that the fullness of life means there are no problems. There are none. There is peace and love and joy. That's all there is. And there is no suicide in peace and love and joy. But God also has to set you up with the support group. Hey, God got you to look at this video. That's part of the support group. If you have questions about it, you get a hold of us. You know how to do it from the website and all. And you're very welcome to get a hold of us. And we'll listen to who you might have in your community that provides the kind of support, that you go to a person who believes in a God who has created you out of love for all eternity and nothing can threaten it, and who feels and lives from the fact that God unconditionally loves you no matter what's going on. That person is a support for you. And that's the best I can do at this point in talking about suicide. Don't hesitate, though, to contact us if you have further questions or how to deal with the matter. Glad you came and looked at this with you. Love you. Love you. You're one with us. You're one with God. Love you because that's all there is in reality. Everything else is baloney. Take care.